Good evening. My name is Shekhinah B. I represent the Women's Coalition for Empowerment, and we are in the second installment of Black Art Conversations. I come to you with two esteemed, fantabulous artists. I don't even want to say guests, because we're like family now that we done kind of broke bread, drank a little bit of apple juice, and
a little sandwich.
a couple of sandwiches. I bring to you today Tanqueray Hayward, also known as the Queen of Philadelphia. Woo! You can throw that in. Woo! I also bring to you Denise King. Now, we was on Wendy Williams' show. Somebody will be back there telling y'all when to clap and everything, but that's all right. We're just doing a vibe. And I'd like to thank our amazing sponsors, the Office of Arts, Culture, and the Creative Economy. I'd like to thank the Rotunda for allowing us the space use, and the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts, and the Women's Coalition for Empowerment. Also with me, I'd like to acknowledge my esteemed musician pals. We have Will, AKA The Man, on keys. And we have, well, I can't call you that on camera, but Tym Johnson on bass. So, I'm gonna give a little bit of a rundown. And, oh yeah, that's right, I'm Shekhinah B, so I'll be moderating this conversation. Black Art Conversations is a series where we're kind of getting perspectives and solutions to many of the issues that Black artists face in pursuing their creative careers. So not only the good, the bad, points of views, advice, all of that good stuff. So I wanted to get the best of the best. So every person that is a panelist on here is the creme de la creme. Le plume, is it?
Le plume.
Le plume. Le plume. Le plume. You gotta do it with the le plume. Le plume. The creme de la creme of Philadelphia's, arts scene. And it doesn't get better than like local talent that technically are international talents. We'll get into that soon. All right, so I want to kind of dive into both of your bios. So I had a few sources dig in to find out things about each of you. Why'd you look like that? Why'd she look like that? So we had a few sources, as I say, to dig in. Tanqueray,
Did you pay these sources?
I gave him like a food stamp card or something like that, 2 for 1 on the streets.
I'm done, I'm done.
Then a little 2 for 1. So I read about you, and I'm in awe, especially how humble both of these esteemed artists are. So you were born in Philadelphia, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you were finding your voice. You spent many days and nights belting out songs from your idols, including the queen of hip-hop soul, Mary J. Blige. Oh, I love me some Mary. The pioneering gospel group, the Clark Sisters, they were an iconic group that a lot of artists kind of just tried to. I cannot do any Dorinda. I love me some Dorinda. I love me some Twinkie. But them notes that they hit, I can't. You work with a lot of people as well. You've worked with, you've shared the stage with Cal Riddick, The Mighty Clouds of Joy, Cedric Napoleon, and Pieces of a Dream. Let me see. Mosaic Flow, Lee Williams, Spiritual QCs, The Joy Boys, Sean Coco McMillan, just to name a few. You've been nominated for Best Soul Female Artist, Best Soul Newcomer, Best Soul Single for This Kind of Love, which is a dope tune, by the way. And you have your anticipated album actually just came out, Definition of a Woman. So it was released earlier this year, and the lead single, Caught Up, was #1 for 4 weeks in a row. And it's been on the Urban Influencer, UK R&B, and the Soul Chart, Radio Experts. Wow, you've been everywhere. So right now, I'm just like, she's sitting there like, yes, go on. Yes, blue, boo-boo. But no, this is an amazing situation. I remember when I first heard about you, and I saw you at, where did I see you? I saw you on, most of my interactions have been like virtual. and I've been following you, and I became an instant fan from there. I have a whole lot of questions for you, because there's a lot of things that you and Miss King have in common. Now, Miss King.
Oui.
Yes, we're doing French? Le plume? That's about all the French I know this year. You were discovered by a friend hearing your amazing, mellifluous, melodic voice.
I was, and that was a long time ago.
You only 21, so how long could it have been?
I mean, it just feels like it was long.
Yeah, it feels that way.
Yeah.
But you're still a young tenderoni.
Yeah.
Oh, we went from 21 to
I'll fight anybody who says I'm not.
So you're also a Philadelphia native.
I am, yep. Born and raised.
On a playground where you spent most of your
West
days?
Philadelphia.
You're from West Philly. Are you from West Philly too?
Overbrook High School.
Oh, wow.
What?
Okay, well, see, I'm glad that I covered up my hair just in case this thing goes left, and I don't have any big earrings today. So your early performances, including sharing the stage with legends,
Yeah.
Butch Ballard,
Yeah,
Arthur Harper,
right.
Cecil Payne,
Yes.
Bootsy Barnes.
Yes.
What? You should say Bootsy? Now, Bootsy owe me $5 now. Isn't that Bootsy? No, I'm joking.
You had to go real far to get it.
Okay, Sid Simmons, Christian McBride,
Yeah.
Billy Paul.
Yes.
So you've sung at almost all of the top venues in Philadelphia, several in New York, Paris,
Paris.
Turkey, Brazil, Africa, Germany, Japan. So you've had more than 25 years in the game.
I have at least 39.
At least 39?
At least.
I'm gonna have to fire my source. They said
At
25.
least
Okay.
39, at least.
I have to catch up with my source. And you started your career in the city of Philadelphia.
I did.
And you
it was
branched
by
out.
Yeah, it was by accident.
It was an accident.
Yeah, I never intended to be a singer.
I heard you were a gangster rapper.
Hey.
So you've been a singer, and do either of you play any instruments?
No, I don't.
Because the greatest instrument you both are using is your voice.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard many positive things from hearing you experiencing the show, the shows that you've done, each of you. I'm just in awe. So I'm gonna get it started with those introductions, and I'm glad that everybody is here with us. How has the pandemic impacted you as a person and as an artist?
Well, as a person, so I am a single mom, and so I've never spent so much time with my child. So it allowed us to really bond.
You're bonding?
We bond.
Stuck like glue.
You know, but also it allowed me to put the album out. It allowed me to sit and actually create and actually record. So it was a blessing for me in that regard. So.
Okay. How about yourself?
For me, it was an opportunity to kind of lean more toward production end of things. I got more into producing community-based concerts outdoors, because what I learned was that a lot of our musician demographic was in trouble, not just artistically, but psychologically.
Yes.
I had talked to a lot of artists who were suicidal, and I just felt like there is something that I can do to make a difference. Aside from doing a bunch of live stream things online, I went around and I begged people for space to produce concerts so that musicians could have an opportunity to play and have some place to put whatever anxiety they were feeling on the stage. So it allowed me to do that, you know, which was, I'm still doing it, but that was the high point of the pandemic for me.
I see. So I've heard a lot of echoing of the quarantine kind of inspired a creative opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You strengthen your relationship with your daughter. She's like, yeah, but
I couldn't wait for her to go to, as soon as that school opened, I was like, go ahead.
get out of here, kid.
Big old mask. Let me glue it to you.
Oh my God.
So can you guys tell me about just motherhood? What was that like, pursuing the creative endeavor as mothers? Oh, I told your business. All right, I'm sorry. It's too late. It's out there.
It's too late. So my daughter, she will be 6 next month, actually. Back in 2014, I was working at Pennsylvania Hospital. I was working as a tech in the intermediate critical care unit, and that's when I had met Mosaic Flow and Cedric Napoleon, and they started inviting me to these gigs, and I said, well, I want to do this.
What year was that?
2014.
What?
Yep.
Wow.
Hold up. I'm shutting down the mic. Hold up. Wait a minute. Testing. 1, 2, 3. 2014, is that when you started pursuing this endeavor professionally? Singing like that? All right, we're going to get back to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been singing all my life, but, you know, listening to people, you need to get an education, you need to focus on a career, so kind of got sidetracked. But I found that even working at the hospital, I wasn't happy, you know, but I used to love singing to my patients. So once I got the taste of the gigs, I was like, oh, I could do this. But of course, working in the hospital, you work weekends, you work holidays. I mean, there was days I literally would change in the car because I worked third shift. So I would go to the gig and change. So finally I said, you know what, I'm gonna quit this full-time job. People thought I was crazy. You know, you work at Penn, that's benefits, you know.
Right.
I said, well, you know, I'm leaving on good terms. If it doesn't work out, I think I'll be all right. Maybe about 6 months after I left, I found out I was gonna be a mom.
All right.
So here I am, at the time, 37 years old. People saying I'm going through this midlife crisis. Now I'm about to have this kid. You need to focus on being a parent. And also with me, I'm thinking like, well, what am I doing? I done quit a full-time stable job, and now I'm about to have this baby. But it was like God said, no, I'm gonna give you what you need to survive. And when I tell you, it was my community that helped me throughout the pregnancy. Even I was working part-time as a teacher. My students, Miss Hayward, file for, go get your welfare.
That's right.
I never used the system in my life, and you know, they was like, well, you a taxpayer. Go and get it. You know, you make the money, go ahead and get it. So I was on the food stamps. I was able to get the health care that I needed. And so I performed all the way up until I went to the hospital after a gig.
Wait.
And had my daughter 4 days later. Yes, I did.
Wait, can we give her a hand for that? Can we give her a hand for that?
I ended up having her early, so I deal with hypertension, so I had preeclampsia.
Oh my goodness.
And I never forget it. I wasn't feeling well. I called the promoter, and he said, well, look, these people are coming here for you. You know, you got to figure something out. And so I said, well, okay. And I talked to the band, so then he called me back. He said, well, can you at least do 1 set instead of 2? I said, okay. So I did that, but something said, let me put the car seat in the car. And they ended up keeping me, and I had her a couple days later. And it was a struggle, and especially being a single mom. I had a C-section, and I literally was by myself with this baby. That's a whole nother story. But I chose to, you know, just go ahead and rock out. And so it was the music that kept me going. It was her that allowed me to keep going. So
You was saying, you was speaking to ministry right now. You was saying something. Somebody had to feel that out
I
there.
had to think about tomorrow.
I know that's right.
I knew in my heart that this was what I had to do. And so I even remember going to a church and I sang Blessed Assurance, and I did some note. This woman came up and put $1 in my shirt. I said, well, if I keep singing like this, I'm going to get a stroller. Do you know the whole church got up, walked around the back of the church, and just, I couldn't sing no more. They were just giving me money. So I was able to buy the stroller.
Yeah.
I was able to buy the car seat. My daughter didn't want for nothing.
That's amazing.
All right.
So I knew that this was my purpose.
You did that.
Our stories kind of mirror each other.
Tell me
because
more.
I worked in a major teaching hospital, and I sang to my patients as well. I had 3 sons. I had 3 sons.
3 sons where?
I had 3 sons that I was a single mom who was raising, you know, and I made the decision to sing, to quit my job. And like you said, everybody thought I was insane because you've got this money, you've got a guaranteed salary, you've got these excellent benefits, you've got, you know, the potential to continue your education, you have all these perks. And I just felt like, as I always feel, you owe your dreams a chance to live. You owe your dreams a chance to fly. And I just didn't want to get to where I am now, retirement age, and say, I wonder what would have happened, woulda, coulda, shoulda. And so I made the decision. I stood at the end of the precipice. I looked out into the abyss, the darkness, and I took a leap of faith, and I jumped. And I have not had to look back for 39 years, so.
Congratulations.
Yeah. It was, listen, it wasn't easy, because the same, I got food stamps. I'm gonna tell you what happened.
Tell us.
This is how the whole shift happened. I was on food stamps. I was singing. I was working at the hospital. I went to the 3-2 center to pick up my stamps. And that is the day my life shifted, because I was in line, and these 3-2 centers were like,
What's a 3-2 center for those that may not know?
A 3-2 center is where people go to pick up their food stamps. Back then, food stamps and a check. Now they have an EBT card, but back then, you had to go get your stuff. And it was a den for all the people who preyed on the poor and the helpless.
Tell 'em.
And the drug addicts and those people who were destitute or who needed help. All the people who preyed on, they came to sell food stamps, to buy food stamps, to sell drugs, to buy drugs. So anyway, I went inside to get my food stamps and my money. And I was standing in line, and it sounds crazy, but desperation has a smell. Do you know what I mean? It has a smell. You can smell it, and all the hopelessness and the fear, you feel it. It's palpable. So I stood in the line, and I kept saying to myself, this is not who you are. What are you doing here? You've got to change something. You have to do it. And so I heard this chatter from the back of the room about a woman carrying a dead baby. And I couldn't believe it, what I was hearing. And sure enough, this woman was there with her baby that she thought was alive.
Oh, my God.
And that was a turning point in my life where I knew I had to make a change. I knew that I was going to do this music. I knew that everything had to be different. And so here I am now, 39 years later. And it was a climb. It was a climb from the bottom up. It was.
Wow. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing. Like, seriously.
It was a climb, yeah.
Can I say both of your stories almost had me in tears? It takes a lot to get me.
Listen, I'm trying to hold it together up here.
I'm sitting there like,
But
that seriously had me, like, hearing the struggle,
but
hearing
imagine living it.
the adversity.
For both of us living it, to just make, to make that, to climb out of that place.
and overcome.
And overcome, I learned.
And to create something meaningful to inspire others.
Footprints. Yeah, footprints.
Like, seriously, all right, let me take myself together, okay. Whew. Seriously, thinking about what you have gone through, I don't think people realize how much, that's what makes us connected to you as artists, because this is a story that's common. It's a story that a lot of artists are ashamed of, but I appreciate your candidness and being honest about that. Like, we talk about the struggling artist narrative as creatives on a consistent basis. I hate the fact that that's the thing. I'm trying to dispel that narrative, but also, if that is the reality, not to be ashamed of that either. Because that's your story.
You can't be.
Inspires the development and the creation of your art. So with that being said, let's dial it back for a minute. Working in Philadelphia, you both have, I've seen you guys in other places. I've seen you in Delaware and Maryland, and you've been all over the place as well. What is it like pursuing that endeavor in Philadelphia? I've been hearing this thing, and I'm not gonna just give you my account on it. I'd like to hear she's like, ooh, what's she about to say? Philadelphia clicks, and go.
I started to learn more about them. I started to see more of it. Now, you hear people talk, but you always want to try to have an open mind and,
Yes.
experience it for yourself. And so, people like who they like, and I just leave it at that. I got to keep it moving. I can't wait for this person or that person. At some point I was just like, I'll just try to get in where I can get in. Once I can get in, and I'll do what I need to do from there.
Okay. What I've learned in Philadelphia, because I'm not a native. I'm actually from New York City. And she's like, oh.
I love New York. New York is great. The people are great.
Yeah, you was just in New York last night. You know what I'm saying? She just did a show, The Shriners.
Yes.
Okay, she just did a dope show. I caught what I could see online. Is there like a full video people could see online?
I do, well...
All right, we're going to talk about that later. But what I've learned about Philadelphia, being here, not only are the real estates segregated, there is a sectionality of musical genres among Philadelphia. There's like the R&B clique. There is the gospel clique. The jazz are like the gangsters. The jazz, I'm saying it because it's like the jazz community kind of run Philadelphia. They will run you and run you out of Philadelphia. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing. It's just based off of my critical research, Qualtrics, and analytics. I have come to that conclusion that the jazz community is pretty large. They kind of like the longest standing in the black arts. Then there's like the hip hop and like the younger, then there's the neo soul. Then there's everybody else. It's just like everybody else. So each community is so sectional and so segregated. I've wanted to like intersect that because I'm like, aren't we just creating black art for the sake of just creating and developing a legacy of black music? Can't we all just get along? Let's talk about the cliques. Let's talk about the cliques.
Yeah, there are a lot of cliques, and I think the cliques are counterproductive because the cliques tend to keep people out who should be in. I have this feeling that if you have something to contribute to the narrative or to the landscape, you should be allowed to do that without a clique saying, well, you don't know this person, so you can't play. You don't know this person, so you can't play. But it's a slippery slope. I mean, it's something that I've battled against because it's just, it's not fair, of course.
Tell them how,
but it is what it is.
How has that directly impacted you?
Well, I mean, when I first started, I had a hard time getting in, a really hard time getting in. I mean, it was just like, well, who is this chick? Who she thinks she is.
Oh, yeah.
Showing up.
Did you get that experience?
Yeah.
Showing up.
I've been in Philly all this time. How'd you get warm daddies? And you only been out 2 months.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. It's
Are they pressed about warm dad? Do they know how much warm daddies pay? Yeah, don't worry. I'll be the one. Do they know how much warm daddies pay? Look.
But it's not even that. It's
Kidding
just
me?
people. It's not even about the money. It's like a bragging right, And for me,
all right, I'm gonna have to slide up in there for a second.
show me the money.
Let me just say this, because I'll be the one to say it. I'll take all the look. I'm gonna be the one to say this. The Bynum's Brothers facilities are a highly coveted performance, several venues that they have in the city of Philadelphia. They are a black-owned establishment. Unfortunately, what they are paying artists is reprehensible, egregious. It's absolutely deplorable what artists are being paid in many of those situations. However, I'm talking about the majority of the artists in those situations. There are just a said few that are getting premium rates. Unfortunately, in this black establishment, those aren't the black artists that are benefiting highly from those premium rates for artists. You could sell tickets all day in there, but why is it they are the only premium black venues in Philadelphia, but there's no tip jar? Have you ever had a tip jar there?
No, but I have people walk up and give me tips.
They done slide it. They done slid it to.
Yeah, they'll slide it to you.
They'll
but
slide it.
And if I got any looks, I make sure I dig it in deeper and let them see that I'm putting it away.
Put it in the bosom bag.
Tuck it in.
Tuck it.
Tuck
yeah.
it in.
But I think that has a lot to do with appearances. You know, when you want to present as a premier establishment, and it doesn't necessarily just have to be a black-owned establishment, it's a premier high-end establishment. You don't want necessarily to have a tip jar, which implies, which implies that maybe you're not so high-end.
You about to explode over here.
I'm just saying.
Well, I get what she's saying.
I'm just saying. I mean, I've performed at some really, really high-end venues that have tip jars. But if someone's self-perception, if someone wants to present themselves as high-end, they don't want a tip jar in the front of their club.
Well, I have a tip for them. Pay artists better. So that way, if you don't want to have a tip jar, pay artists better. Yes, I'm going to say it. I'll say it. I'll be the one because I don't have any. I don't have a hat in the fight.
Well,
pay artists better. Pay artists. Pay them better. You better let them have a tip jar. Can they have a tip jar?
They need a tip jar.
Do they need a tip jar? Tip jar, yeah.
But
But I mean, to me, I understand that there's a culture.
yeah, it's about appearances. And here's the other thing. The other piece that goes with that is that artists have to band together and say, we are not going to work for this amount of money anymore.
Yes.
We will work for a set amount, a standard,
Yeah.
and this is what we want, period.
I agree.
Without people undercutting and going behind and taking less. I'm just saying.
Let's get into the undercut. This is
I'm
a
just
real,
saying.
this is a real, she like, yes, I'm gonna have my snack, child. So let me tell you about the undercutting. The undercutting in this industry is, you get a gig, let's say Tanqueray. They want Tanqueray. Tanqueray says, look, you got to pay me at least $5,000 for me to appear and perform for a set. That's what they should be paying you, sis. That's what they should be paying you. $5,000 for her to appear. But they said, that's a little steep. That's a little, extra. And guess what? Slapjack Mahoney comes behind Tanqueray. Slapjack Mahoney says, well, I'll do it for, $50. You got $50. So they'll do $50 just to say that they were there, $50 and a chicken wing biscuit. So they will go in and they will come behind. So they said, well, you know what? They have talent. I guess we don't want to pay that because if we pay her that, then everybody else behind them is going to expect that rate. And it's terrible because what we're doing is we're all just, it's like crabs in a barrel, pulling each other down, going behind each other's backs. And I never had a respect for that. And I think that we should, there needs to be a union without the union. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, there needs to just be an agreement amongst musicians that, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to get this money up. We need to stop. Because believe me, I have sold myself short so many times and go home and kick my own ass for taking such a little bit of money. But I mean, here's the other piece. When you are an artist and that is your sole source of income, that is your means of survival, and it's difficult for you to say, I won't do this $50 gig, or I won't do this $125 gig because the electric bill is due. You kind of lower your standard, or you just kind of fall on your own sword, more or less, because you need the money. But there needs to be some conversations around that whole pay scale piece. There has to be, or people will continue to work for 1950s money in 2020, 21, 22, and onward.
Can I tell you, based on research, it seems like artists and musicians were getting paid better like in the 70s than they're getting paid now. Artists and musicians were getting, and the residencies in a lot of venues were consistent. So that's what the venues have recognized, you know what? We can save money by bringing in different artists at different times, changing a fluctuating rate where it's not ever one set of a premium rate. And what it is, and it's a two-edged sword, because artists too are to blame for this. Artists don't promote. Artists are guilty of not promoting. Artists are guilty of not having the appropriate portfolio necessary to adequately, extend to their audience to support. So it's a business deal. If you're gonna expect the venue to pay you something, then you need to bring some sort of a following, some sort of a, promotions. To an extent. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what you're feeling.
I think that some part of the onus is on the artist okay, like somebody just asked me recently, I've toured all over the world.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people follow me in DC. I don't know how many people follow me in Philadelphia. I don't. I can only surmise. I can only guess. But this person said to me, well, I want to hire you, but what's your following here in DC? I don't know. Hire me and find out. Some part of the onus for marketing has got to be on the venue. It's the venue's responsibility. Yeah. It's not just the artist's responsibility solely. The artist has to play their part. But in terms of filling seats and selling tickets, it's equal. It has to be equal, or at least the venue has to play a huge part in promoting their business.
Now,
it's
that's
their
a
business.
good point.
It's their business.
Have you ever seen a situation where they'll promote? I've seen a situation where they have a list of artists lined up. They only promote certain types of artists. And then the other artists that are hired in, they never promote. First of all, they don't even put it on their website. So it's like, wait a minute, you're performing at such and such venue, but it's not on the website, but they're promoting the other person. It's like, well, why can't you equally and adequately promote everybody? Because it's a win-win for all of us.
Especially when you're using my stuff.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
Tell them, what are they
You just reposted what I did.
Did it? But that's a fact. That's a fact. Have you experienced?
Ain't even had to spend a dime. Copy and paste.
They copy and paste in.
That's it.
The
That's
work
what
that
they
you
do.
did.
Yeah.
And they didn't pay you what a fair rate is. So when we talk about fair rates, it's very difficult to answer that without knowing the scope of the job. And every gig is different. Even the research surrounding that, when I said, I want to dive in. I want to learn as much as I can about this business because I want to come correct, because I felt like my experience was incorrect. And when I went online and I looked at per hour what an artist is supposed to make, I saw something tantamount to about like $30 an hour. First of all, we're not working 40 hours of work week with these gigs, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have no benefits with these situations. So if I'm in a gig and I'm doing if I'm there for 4 hours, what's $30 an hour for 4 hours? That doesn't count for whatever promotions you did. First of all, the cost of my makeup, my shoes, my weave, my my padded bras, my padded
lift.
underwear, my nails.
You got to pay for your own food.
For your own food. Talk about it.
I'm just saying.
Don't feed you, like at the very least.
This is one of the things that I can...
And that's a tax write-off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's one of the things that I can say about the difference between here in the States and overseas in Europe is that in Europe, art is serious. Mm-hmm. It's not a hobby. It's not something that you do for fun. Mm-hmm. It is your job. It is what you do, and you should be compensated accordingly. Here, when you tell people, I'm an artist, I'm a singer, but what's your real job? What do you really do?
Job.
Really, so people don't take it seriously. So if they don't take it seriously, they're not going to compensate you accordingly. They're not.
What do you feel like an artist should do to be taken serious?
I mean, you have to come correct. You got to come with your A game.
Not the Z game?
No, it can't be the C game. It's got to be the A game. You got to bring your best. You have to show up serious. And I'm guilty. I don't always show up, you know, as I should sometimes. It's depending on what I'm going through. But you got to show up like you're hungry, like you really want this. Like, this is what I do. Yeah, this is what I do. This is what I do. Just like if you were an architect. You wouldn't show up without your portfolio or your pencils or your tools to demonstrate that this is what you do. No, you would show up with your stuff. You would show up with everything you need, your mic, your music, this, that. You would do that, and people would take you more, hopefully, take you more seriously.
The hope.
The hope, keep hope alive. You hope they take you more seriously, but that's what you have to do.
Can I ask, I'm gonna just say this. I remember seeing both of you before we actually interacted in person. Like, I've been seeing both of you